Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Panther Airsoft Folding Table Talk. This is episode, scroll up, sorry, 84. And today we're going to be talking about traveling to the US for Airsoft. Our guest today is going to be David, also known as Schoolboy Tactical. Welcome back, by the way. Welcome back to Canada, by the way. And I hope work
Thank
isn't
you.
too hard for you. Yes. So, welcome back. I'm sure you have a lot of stories to tell us about your recent travels to the States, and I did enjoy your stories that you're posting. Awesome. And we have Paul, also known as Hans, from our Discord server, our moderator. And he is also our pun master, 8000, because he's just nonstop punning all day. You know what's worse, Paul, is when we went to Crossfire and I was driving, you were just punning away, even
And I
when
was
you're asleep.
sleeping.
Yeah, even when you're asleep. Oh God. So that's Paul for you. Um. So let's face it. The U.S. has like the best airsoft events and milsims overall because they get to do blank fires as well for some events. But today,
guns.
yeah. But today we're gonna be going over some things you need to know before heading out to the border with your airsoft guns and equipment. Whether you fly or drive, all the process are the same. Um, so before we get started, let's just do a little bit of intro here. Since Paul is new, tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, who are you?
Well, I've been playing Airsoft since about 2011, 2010, I think. I don't remember. When I first started playing, it was with the Airsoft Gear store when they ran out of the games out of Sawasan paintball way back then.
That was like more than a decade ago at this point.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Time blurs once you start getting older.
Yeah.
I have successfully imported nearly 50 or over 50 airsoft guns for both myself and other people. With the longest one taking 14 months from start to finish.
Wow.
But I've never been unsuccessful at this point in importing anything airsoft at this time, so I have a pretty good track record so far on that. I have gone to only 2 events in the States, but I had to figure all of that out on my own. There was a Canadian Milsim group. I messaged them on Facebook, and they literally told me, figure it out yourself. So
Pound
I did.
sand. Wow, lovely.
Wow.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I
That's
was like, all
helpful.
right, and they don't exist anymore. Their Facebook page is gone, so I'm like, whatever works for me. So I had to figure it out all on my own, where that involved reading and lots of it, and reading government legalese, which I'm sure if any of you have ever read the infamous memos out there from the government,
Yep.
you know it's not easy. And of course, I've also been known for having the double miniguns at one point in time.
Yes.
At
Yes.
Or
You only had double? I thought you had more than.
That's 4 Chris Vector grass blowbacks.
Oh yes, the Chris Vectors. Never mind.
Yeah, I have 4 of those, so that way I can field all 3 variants at the same time.
So why bother reloading
Carbine,
when?
SMG, and akimbo.
So you don't need to reload. Got it. When was the last time you were at Panther? I haven't seen you in a while at Panther.
It was sometime in 2019 because initially what happened was my work schedule changed on me, so I ended up having to work weekends, and then Sunday turned into my only day off because I was also going to school, so I can try and get into an apprenticeship at work. And now it's just my sleep schedule and my have a bit of insomnia, does not like me,
Mm,
so I'm having a hard time getting the proper sleep beforehand so I can actually show up and feel safe driving there and driving home.
damn.
Yep.
Well, we do miss you out at the field, especially with your
Well,
minigun.
trust me, once I show up, you'll know.
You bring the
Make sure I have
entire
like the
armory
Mexican
with
hat
you.
dance horn or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions from you two, Macro Attack? I'm sure you have a lot of questions for Paul.
But yeah,
Mac, you want to go first, or I'll go first?
You go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well. Okay. So you've been playing a long time. Like, obviously, we've talked to other guys who have been around and played and stuff like that, and you seem to have quite a bit of experience when it comes to also importing and whatnot. With that being said, do you remember what your first airsoft gun was, and do you still have it?
Yes, I still have it. It is in, I think, 9 or 10 pieces. It broke. It was a Maruzen L96 that I bought from Dave's Surplus, along with my second ever airsoft gun I ever purchased from them, a Tokyo Marui Mark 23.
Wait,
Oh
wait.
wow,
So
you got the
they
23 from them?
they used to
Yes.
sell
Wow.
airsoft guns,
Dave's
Dave?
Surplus, not DS Tactical, because remember they've changed,
Yeah,
when they
yeah,
still
yeah.
sold surplus stuff. And I actually bought that back in 2008. I only played
Yeah,
a
it's a
couple
long time
games in
ago.
2008, so that don't really count that as my first time. I first started playing on a regular basis in 2010.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I started 2008, but I only played like 1 or 2
Mhm.
games, and then it fell out. And then it was more like in about 2010 where I actually started seriously playing, and I've been playing on a fairly regular basis since, with the exception of slightly before the pandemic and everyone's favorite pandemic.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but
Yeah, definitely Spanish influenza. 100 years ago. That was.
Black Plague, man. Black Plague's my favorite.
The one I
The
wasn't
virus
around.
of unknown origins.
Okay,
Okay.
I got one more for Paul here. Okay, so Paul, obviously, yeah, you've been around for a while now and stuff like that. How nice is it and stuff? Because you've seen, and like you said before, with reaching out to that Milsim group that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like you've seen the scene go through its changes, and obviously having attended 2 events yourself, and then finding out about the plethora that are available nowadays, like
Mhm.
is there any that catch your eye that you'd like to try to go to, or one that you already had gone to that you'd like to go again? Is what's on your mind? Is that still on the plate for you, or?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm weird in that I enjoy the planning aspect of doing the event as almost as much as doing the event. Because when I do all the calculations on all of it, I'm stupidly meticulous on it. You might remember, Mac, I think I came to you guys early on in your train wreck time where I was like, hey, do you guys want to go do this American Mill Sim down at where they also do the Oklahoma D-Day paintball game?
I remember. I
And
wish I had said yes.
literally how it came up with, here's the entire itinerary.
Yeah.
Like I had done it all up because I do all the calculations on. I'm like, okay, this is how much it would be for driving, flying, rough calculations per vehicle cost. Like I, for some weird reason, I just enjoy that. And sometimes some of the guys I used to play with on a regular basis, they would make jokes like, haha, what would it take for our entire team to be equipped with a system of PTWs? When those were like the golden gun of airsoft. And it's just all of a sudden I'm like, you had to ask that, and now I have to figure those numbers out.
Right. Okay.
So it's
Like,
just sometimes
here,
I
boys, I
just
made a
enjoy
list.
figuring out that stuff there. But I also, when it comes down to costs for milsims, for me, I always round up. When it comes to cost, anything cost wise, it's always round up. Like
Yeah.
so, and I always round
Be
up to the nearest
prepared.
$50 amount. So if it's, let's say I'm $1.50 over, I'm rounding that up to the $50 mark. Because I would rather look, this is how much it costs and us to come under budget than be over budget.
100%.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to anything, like when it comes to kilometers, I always round up to the nearest 50-kilometer mark. That's especially for calculating for fuel, for driving, anything like that, because you don't know, you might have to do a detour. There could be road construction, anything like that, that you cannot foresee that far in advance. And I generally start planning my stuff depending on how far away the event is, but depending on how far ahead I need to start planning. Like for example, if I was going to go to Operation, I believe Copperhead, which is in New Mexico, and I believe American Milsim does that one.
Yep.
I'd be planning that
Mhm.
one 3-4 months in advance. And I would try and generally, I would spend like almost an entire week just concentrating fully on that, getting all the numbers down, everything like that, finding out everyone who's actually interested in going, all of that stuff, figuring all of that out ahead of time. So that way I could figure out the cost. Okay. And then I'd try and do cost analysis, which is better for us, flying or driving. Generally, I have found that driving is better, it's slightly cheaper. Also because flying with airsoft, I have not personally done that. The only information I can glean from that is Jet from Desert Air Fox. He did that on his YouTube. That is something I would definitely take a serious look into. I would almost figure out a way to go across the border and get into it, like Seattle Airport, something like that. So that way you're dealing with pretty much only the land crossing when you're dealing with Canada, because sometimes I find that's easier than dealing with their other stuff. Because again, it also comes down to whenever you're dealing with anything on CBSA, it's literally the person in front of you if you have to do with, or if it's dealing with mail, whatever you're dealing with that person. They don't always seem to everyone does not have the same understanding of airsoft rules
Mm-hmm.
and stuff
Yeah.
when you're doing your whatever. So it's not, you don't always have that thing of, yeah, you're going to deal with one person and it's going to be the same as the other guy. It's like, no, everyone's different.
Okay. You got ahead of yourself there, but that's cool.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm like you when it comes to planning. Yeah, no, I get it. When we went to Crossfire, like what, 2019, 2018, 2018, 2019? I don't even know. I don't remember. Yeah, we planned it all ahead of time. But we only had like 4 people, so yeah, no, it's great to have you here, Paul. And yeah, we'll be going through some of the topic segments here shortly. But let's go over to David. How are you doing? And how was your event down there?
I'm doing good, just a little tired, but outside of that realm, the event I went down to was excellent.
Yeah.
So
which,
I had a
which event
booth.
was it again?
It was Iron Horse 4, and they were hosting that out of Guardian Center down in Georgia. Yeah, so it was quite a bit of a distance to travel. So I ended up having to fly as a result of that because fuel costs in terms of like driving across the country would have been around the same price, if not more expensive. And then it's just time.
Yeah.
Time is the big one, and that's the one that like kind of gets eaten up quite a bit. And it really depends on how many buffer days you kind of want in between if you're going to go to an event down south. So it's based on your budget and then essentially how much time you have allotted for it. That's kind of what it breaks down to. Yeah. So I mean, I flew, pardon me, and I had very little issues for the most part. And the only issue that I ended up having was because of a very small technicality and more or less a rookie, which wasn't on our end. That was pretty much it. So everything else was actually smooth. So Paul talking about kind of like flying in, like I can comment a little bit more on that, I guess, later in the podcast. But I haven't necessarily crossed the border previously through the land border with airsoft guns pardon me, no, that's a lie. I did cross once, but it was not for an event, and it was specifically to send something to some friends over in upstate New York, basically to do some work, and that ended up being super easy. Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right. Other than that, how is Schoolboy Tactical doing in terms of like content or anything like that?
Content's good.
I saw you did that big giveaway, and I don't know how long you were running that campaign for, but I thought I saw it like a couple of months ago or a month ago,
I think it was like 3 months or something like that.
Wow,
to be honest with you, it's a difficult thing to do a giveaway and kind of have it done organically on its own. I mean, it's either you pay for ads, which I really didn't want to do in the slightest. It was more or less to give it out to the community, and word of mouth travels a lot better, I find, at least, and then you have a more targeted audience because the algorithms that Instagram kind of uses is not set up remotely, basically, for anybody who does content that's I guess like firearms or airsoft or even military style based. It's just kind of like in its own little universe and everything like that.
Yeah.
So you don't really have that kind of reach. It ended up going really well, and then I got like a backlog of stuff I got to do. It's primarily because I just don't have a great deal of time all the time, mainly between work and then life. That's kind of how it goes.
Understandable. Yeah. So I do remember that kit that you were giving out was a pretty decent kit. From you and your partner from Israel that you've made, I believe.
The backpack and the large pack he and I designed and made. Yeah. So that was like the only one that we had ever produced, which was kind of cool, but at the same time a little disappointing because I still have the designs, granted, so I can always like crock up another one if that be the case. But right now, like, it's out in the ether now, so somebody gets to use it, which is nice to see, along with all the other accoutrements. So the placard system, the small assault pack, and all of it can kind of work together and be intermingled and swapped out. So there's a lot of flexibility. It's a concept I've been working on for some time now, and I have a second iteration that I want to get around to, but we'll see how much time I have in order to kind of pump it out.
And last question for you before I pass it to these two. I like the vaporwave look you're doing with your content. Really really do love it with the with your what is the glasses? I have one as well. I keep
Pit
forgetting.
Pit
Vipers.
Vipers.
The Pit
Yeah.
Vipers,
Yeah.
vaporwave. What else? The '80s sort of neon
Yeah.
look. I
Just love that
feel as a graphic
synthesizer.
designer in my head, I'm like I feel what you're going for, and it's fucking awesome. I love it. Is there any
Thank
reason
you.
why? I just want to know. Is there a reason why?
Yeah, I'm stuck in the 80s, even though I wasn't an 80s kid.
Yeah.
I have sort of this reverence to the music of that time, and that kind of I got on a weird trend, like I think like 2 or 3 years ago, where I started watching like 80s films
Yeah.
as well as documentaries and then commercials. I was like, oh, this is like, it looks really shitty. Like that's pretty much the first thing that dawned on me in terms of like
The
the
VHS
VHS.
look. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like that look and that aesthetic over it versus like having like ultra high quality and all that kind of modern stuff. I think it leaves a little bit of a lure to sort of things that you do, and it adds comical sense to it as well too. Because I find the 80s is kind of hard to take serious nowadays. So
Yeah, I mean the '80s is what,
yeah,
like a good 30 years ago, for almost
40.
40 years
We're
now.
pushing 40. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Okay,
mean,
stop making me feel old now.
yeah, I know. I know. I feel old as well. Don't worry, dude. I was born in the '80s as well. But I do like that look. I appreciate that look. It's just like, the '70s has their feel, the '60s has their feel. You got their
Yeah.
'80s look, and it's almost like early '90s as well. Like you're crossing over that area too, which is actually awesome.
Yeah, well, the 90s,
Yeah.
90s stole a whole lot from the
Yep.
80s, and
No,
the
I
90s
agree.
doesn't have a lot of flavor of its own.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the late 90s,
Yeah.
it's kind of bland. I mean, unless you were in the punk scene, which I was, but that's
Yeah.
not something that really translates very well all the time.
Like I said, I appreciate the '80s sort of theme that
Yeah.
you're going for, and it's not hard to pull, but it's also difficult as well because you have to get things that are from that time, and the kits that you pull out
Yeah.
as well, they do look good as well. So keep on it. Macrotac, do you have any questions for David here? We've had him as a guest before, I know, but
Well, no, yeah. So if I'd hope everyone has paid attention to the podcast long enough to see. We've had David on here numerous times, and every time it's been a pleasure to have David on here. I've been waiting to talk to David about this. I know David, I've like literally avoided our other group chats to be like, no, I'll ask questions later.
Keep putting it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So,
Yeah.
okay. So Dave, the event particular, sorry, I haven't looked at the particular details of that event. I was jealous as hell of all the photos that you were posting and stuff, and I know the details of that facility. So
Mhm.
guys, what is it? It's called a Guardian Center.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
run by what is it, Griffin Tactical or
it's-
something?
It's
Rapid
'Cause I
response
know
run
it's-
by
yeah.
yeah.
I know it's a government facility, but it is a
Well,
private.
technically, no. It's a private facility
It's a
before
private
being
facility.
a government facility.
Yeah, but it's contracted out by the government and many other
Mhm.
entities, right? Because I mean that's the thing. It's a great
Yeah.
training facility, and the fact that you're able to play airsoft there in America, it was American Milsom that was hosting it,
Yeah.
right?
It
And
was
the
American
fact that,
Wilson.
the fact that they have become big enough to be able to, host events of that size at those places and stuff. So if you can give me details
Mhm.
just on of the event. So it was, how many days, what was the player base, and what
So
were you getting into?
the event was Iron Horse 4, so they kind of have these trilogy events that keep going. So certain events in certain locations have certain names, and that's kind of where they base them off of. The size of the event itself was pretty much the entirety of the AO. There were only 3 buildings that were off limits to us due to administrative reasons. So it was essentially for the staff on site who take care of the facility to use. And then we had free range. So we had the full tunnel size. You had 80 acres basically of just urban environment to go through. You go all the way up to the 3rd floor. You were just not allowed to go on the roof for safety reasons. And outside of that, there were about 800 players at this event. It was over 2 days. Granted, the time slots were a little shorter than I expected. And that was more or less because of Guardian Centers. They have a very sort of like regimented schedule system, and then you can't really play around with it. There's no wiggle room with them. It's kind of like, these are the times that you can do this. This is when it ends. So on the Saturday, it started at 1:30 in the afternoon, and it went all the way straight through till 11 o'clock at night. And then Sunday, it started at, I think, around like 11:30, and then went straight through till about 3 p.m. and then that's when they like kind of closed it off. But the AO itself is really the reason why you go to play there. It's not so much as just the amount of time that you get, it's the fact that you don't get access to this stuff normally. So it was pretty cool being down there. And I mean, they had facial recognition stuff set up everywhere, which was kind of cool and crazy.
That's
And I
great.
think they flew,
Like
yeah,
the
they flew a
government has
drone
your
over
face
us.
now. Oh no.
Dude, I'm on enough paperwork. It doesn't matter. So,
They know who you are.
All right.
yeah, it's not hard, but the
Okay,
game
so there
itself
there were breaks. So there were time slots.
Yeah, the breaks were only in between because of Guardian Center's request essentially to have play end at certain times. That was realistically the reason why. Otherwise, the event probably would have gone all the way through, like just 2 days straight through. But I don't think they. I guess the hosts who were providing it essentially just didn't want that at the time. I mean, they had other training background activities going on. You had guys doing live fire in other areas in training sections essentially, so you could hear it around the facility too, which was kind of neat. But it's a very active place, to put it nicely. It's not a facility essentially that is you lease it out for the weekend and it's all yours. That's not really how that works. Yeah, but that was fine. Like, that didn't really bother me. I mean, I didn't fly all the way there to not play at this really cool facility regardless.
Okay.
Yeah.
Attack.
Well, okay. So my big question for you actually is that you took down, I believe, your stoner, was it?
I took down my
Or did you take
stoner.
down a whole bunch of guns?
I took down 3 in total.
Okay.
I took down the stoner, a pistol, along with a secondary rifle, like a C8 I have set up just as a backup. The whole
Mhm.
idea was that if one went down, I had another one to kind of work with. I didn't want to
Okay.
do any teching or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, how was it transporting those over? Like what kind of container did you use? What did you go with to bring everything down?
So I used a single Pelican case in terms of all my guns, their accessories and accoutrements that came with it. I put it all in one case.
Okay.
The
Nice,
big thing, I think the big thing for traveling, at least for me, was I like to compartmentalize and set everything up in an organized manner. In theory, because if I'm going to deal with some sort of federal agency, it's a little bit easier if you have everything kind of set up a certain way because you can present and show to them.
Yeah.
The other part too is to kind of cover my butt, I guess, because every time you have to go through sort of an airport, essentially with your airsoft stuff, you have to do a declaration form, which means you have to put it inside the case itself. So every time I would do that, I would also take a photo of it too. So for whatever particular reason, if it was ever opened up and I wasn't present with the key or anything like that to unlock the case itself, it was more of an assurance to make sure that anything was there, because I hate to say it like this, but certain agencies have a really bad history and track record of actually stealing stuff from people from time to time. And I heard about this before, so it was something that I really wanted to ensure that everything was serialized, checked, and was present in the case that was there. So it just makes it easier, especially for like documentation purposes, travel, all that kind of stuff. But in the end of it all, like, I think I overkilled it a little bit because it didn't really matter, but it did kind of come in handy in a funny way. And that's kind of the interesting story, I guess, that everyone wants to know about.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Boy, do you have any other questions?
Nope. Let's get on with the show here, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's dive into
Let's
it.
dive into this. So this is a little bit of a guide for everybody when it comes to traveling. Do mind that we are traveling to a different country. I mean, we're in the same continent, but different country. We're talking about the United States here. We're going to dive into different countries later on, but right now, because our closest neighbor is the US, we're going to dive into it because now that the borders are open, remember, this show did start when COVID started, so we didn't really dive into topics like this until
We tried to avoid
now.
it.
We tried to avoid it because we didn't want to promote people to go down there while, you still had to do the big PRC test. I mean, you still have to right now because it's still
Is your
federally-
travel essential?
Yeah, there you go. So, but that's sort of relaxing now, which is great, and now we can talk about it. So the first topic that we're going to talk about here is the event. So before you before you plan everything, go check what kind of events are happening down in the States. You could go through, I've listed down a few event sites here. Milsom West is the big one, of course. Our neighbors down at Washington usually has 1 or 2 events every year. With it, you got American Milsom, which is what you went to, David. I don't know if you went to there, Paul.
Yeah.
I think Paul, you did the.
I did Lion Claw.
Lion Claw, yeah. I was
And that other group I was talking about that was run by that guy Bubba, I believe that's Centurion Combat Simulations.
Centurion
actually.
Combat, yeah. So I put
Okay.
that down there as well. You also have the newcomers like Desert Fox Airsoft events. Our friend Jet Desert Fox runs that, and it is a nice event where it takes it more into like the futuristic sort of event, sort of a theme, which is pretty awesome. And you have things like veterans of airsoft. They're also in there. They have a list of events in there as well. I'll have all these links below in the description, guys, if you need to know.
Oh yeah,
What
you got
these-
you got ball hack nation there too.
Did I?
Yeah.
Ball hack?
I mean Balahack.
Balahack. Oh, Balahack. Ball-
Sorry,
ball
oh
sorry,
my god.
sorry.
I-
I'm watching
I-
too
I
much
forgot.
Naz.
Yeah, I
watch
forgot
too much
about that.
Naz.
So Balahack is run by what's his name?
Swamp Sniper.
Swamp Sniper. And he runs the field and a YouTube channel, and he does some lovely events. He just did the Western event that Jet Desert Fox was just in.
He pulls
I'm-
off some insane events. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me? Like I want to go down there, but also
Yeah.
I think about like the AO, and I'm like, do I want to go down there?
It's yeah. Dayton said it's
Yeah,
a
his is
beautiful.
somewhere,
It's a
what,
beautiful
northeast
AO.
US or something like that.
Yeah, it's
No, he's in the south.
Oh, I thought he was northeastern United States.
No.
No, I think
Florida,
it's
isn't
like
it?
it's like no, it's either Florida or like South Carolina. It's one of the two.
I'm checking right now.
Chesapeake, Virginia.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
So East Coast.
Yeah,
All right.
East Coast.
So
Alright.
yeah, check those events first before you start planning anything. You want to make sure that you could get the dates off. So you're planning a airsoft vacation at this point. Make sure you could bring a friend if you can. Try to drag a friend or two, because why would you want to go down there by yourself when you could have fun with the friend? I mean,
Mhm.
you could go down there on your own. David, you went down there on your own, but you had people that
Yeah.
you knew down there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was linking up with some buddies in upstate New York,
There you
but
go.
I essentially went on my own for the
Well,
most part.
I mean, traveling there, but you had friends
Yeah.
there that you knew. And Paul, what about you? Did you travel with a team or?
Yeah, it was a 21-hour drive
Ooh.
each way, and we did it twice.
Oh,
If you ask anyone who went with me, they will tell you it was the most enjoyable punless drive ever.
Nope.
punless.
Nope.
Punless.
Punless.
First
Oh.
drive, I
Punless.
was fed puns for 21 hours straight.
Oh, is this where your insatiable appetite came from?
Are you
Yeah.
telling me
I
you were
had it
awake
long
the
before
entire
that,
time?
and all of you know how wonderfully
You
good I
guys
am
don't
at
understand.
puns.
I was in a car with him.
And I was sleeping, and I'd wake up and crack a pun and go right back to sleep.
Boy, you're Asian. You should have just given him some sleep tea.
Yeah,
I wish.
put that in there.
So there you go, guys. Travel with a friend. When I went to Milsom West, I traveled with Dayton, and yeah, I also I also traveled across Canada, not internationally, but flew to Toronto to play airsoft there as well. Not an event, just like a weekend thing. Yeah, I planned it, and I made sure that people that I knew in social media, I let them know that I was coming there, and then they welcome me with open hearts, and open fields and BBs. Yeah, so I flew with my airsoft guns, like traveling within Canada with airsoft guns to the East Coast. It's no problem. It's usually the international ones you just gotta watch out for. Make sure you book a few days off before the event starts. It's good to sort of travel there before the event starts. Don't travel there when the event starts. I mean,
What are
why
you
would
talking
you?
about? Just in time, just like we have our global shipping issues and everything like that. Just in time
Just
events
in
is
time.
right? Okay,
Yeah,
just-
come on, come on.
And make sure you guys book. You guys book some days off after the event as well. You might want to travel around a bit after the event, or like do a big rest beforehand, because
Yeah,
I know there's
Some recovery.
I know there's a few people that after Milsim West will literally drive back home, and I don't know how they could do it, but I'm like dead tired when I was done Milsim West.
I have been dead.
Yeah.
Well, that and they're still in the game sometimes. Like, oh man, like especially if you go to some of the more intense
Yeah,
games and
yeah.
stuff like that. I've
Your
heard some people
your
just
mindset is
yeah,
still like in
like
like
people are still messaging days after the event, going like, "Bruh," and it's like, okay,
I have not recovered.
bro,
yeah,
I
you're
haven't
back.
showered in days.
It's like you're back to real life now. It's
Yeah.
alright. It's
So
alright.
for you two, Paul or David, did you how many days do you guys recommend of booking off? Because when you like we'll start with David. When you flew there, like were you there a day before the event started or like a couple of days before the event started? You
I had a buffer day in between, so it was roughly the day what is it, the day I left Canada and flew to New York to get picked up and go upstate.
Yeah.
It was 2 days essentially before the event, so I had a full day of flying. Got there, I stayed with my buddy in upstate, kind of relaxed a little bit. The following day, we went up to meet up with our other friend, packed all of our stuff up, and then proceeded to fly down from there. So
Oh, you had to
I
fly
only had
locally again.
yeah, I locally down to Georgia. So I had a single buffer day in between, which
Okay.
was something I did intentionally. That way, like you can either recuperate if you need to, or just kind of chill out. I was 6 days off total, so I don't know,
Yeah.
like 2 travel days there and 2 travel days back, really. Yeah.
Okay. And for Paul, when you drove down there, I'm guessing you had a buffer day as well with the hotel booked, or
Yeah, basically what it was when we drove down for Line Claw, at that time I was working weekends, but I was a lot younger and able to function on next to no sleep. So my days off were Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I took only 1 week off of work because that way I'd have 3 day buffer before, 3 days after.
yeah.
But basically what it was we didn't cross the border until the traveler's insurance took into effect, which was midnight. So like 5-6 minutes after midnight, we actually crossed the border. We made sure we had actually like a day or two extra buffer time before we would actually do the final stretch into there. So we drove like the 2,000 whatever it was kilometers, the 20 hours
Yeah.
to LA because we wanted to see EVIC, we wanted to see Airsoft GI, we wanted to see those stores because it's like, okay, yeah, I can see it on YouTube online, but man, nothing prepares you for the moment you walk in EVIC and seeing how big that place is and just all of it. So it's just one of those things like you should see that. It's kind of like if you play Airsoft, that's our mecca.
If you're going to California, you should definitely go to Evike then.
Yeah, if you're in the area.
The Costco
And
of
then-
Airsoft.
Yeah, so then basically what it was, then we after that, because how Blind Claw works with their schedule on how they do things. So we showed up, then you show up at the field not ready to go for the first day, because that's basically your check-in, chronoing all of your guns and stuff like that. So we showed up, we chronoed for all of that, and then we had a hotel near like a 5-minute drive from where the event was happening, because we learned from the first year, camping at the site sucks ass. Because you're out there in the desert, and you guys have been to that area. It kind of sucks ass.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a good tent, which our
It's
tent
gonna
doesn't
fly
survive
away.
very
Yeah.
well, it's not going to work very well. So we're just like, yeah, whatever. We found a hotel nearby, and that hotel had like, I think it was like 4 or 5 queen size beds in it.
Oh wow.
In this one thing, and it was like I think $100 a night. It was ridiculously cheap, and it was really close by. So we're like, sweet, this works. So we just left ourselves the buffer. Like we had a 2-day buffer on the end, and then basically once the event was over on Sunday, and like basically everything's starting to whole pack up. That's when we started our drive back, and we rented a vehicle from Budget. I don't know if they still do that anymore. And then we had 2 drivers, and so it was basically 4 people went down with us. So we had 2 drivers and 2 co-pilots, and the entire job of that co-pilot is to make sure that the driver stays awake. And everything. So it's like if I'm reaching
that is
for
some
a
good
water
planning.
bottle, yeah, if I'm reaching for a water bottle and I'm missing it, it's that guy's job in the front passenger seat to grab that water bottle, open the cap, and hand it to him. Like the driver's job is to drive the vehicle while the other guys in the back, the other driver is sleeping in the vehicle while they're driving. So that's the whole thing on how I did that there, because that way I find it best when you have the 2 drivers, because then you just alternate drivers as you're going, so you don't have to have the longer stops.
Yeah.
You basically do non-stop driving. And since I work night shift, I was night shift guy, I'm like, I'll do the first stretch. I drove till about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we switched over.
And then you took a nap. Yeah.
And do note, something you should note though, is make sure that if you're using a GPS, to know if your GPS is reading in miles per hour or kilometers per hour.
Yeah, that's
My
true.
GPS changed the moment we crossed the border, and the other driver didn't know. So he saw the sign said 60 miles an hour. So he went, oh, that means I get to go 100. So he looked at the GPS and went to 100. How
Nice.
we didn't get a speeding ticket, I will never know, but we made wonderful time
Sounds like it.
because of that.
Okay, so yeah, you said it there. There's a lot of pre-planning involved when it comes to this. Yeah, it's no more than like a vacation as well. You do a lot of planning. There's a lot of cost amounted to this as well. And before we went live here, you were talking about like calculating all the cost when
Yep.
it comes to events, and that's one of those things where you said you always got to round up
Mhm.
your cost accumulated, because it's just one of those things where these aren't expensive, or
Mhm.
these aren't cheap. Sorry, these aren't cheap events. One, you have to buy the tickets for the event. Two, you have to buy plane tickets and hotels. And you said you had rentals. You had rentals. You got to divide that up between your crew, or if you're going by yourself, then it's a little bit
Hmm.
cheaper as well. Well, it depends on how
Yeah.
cheap it is. Yeah, you gotta plan all these things beforehand, right? This is a vacation that you're going to, but also a very expensive one as well.
Yeah. The only
Um,
reason we rented a vehicle at the time though was because I had basically a Dodge Neon. It was an SRT4
yeah,
and a 93 Jeep Wrangler. Neither one of those are going to be comfortable to drive for that kind of
yeah,
distance. And none of my other friends
Mhm.
who all wanted to go, none of them had a vehicle that they would trust to drive that distance and not break down.
yeah,
So we're just like, you know what, why don't we just rent? And what we did, we rented like a minivan from Budget
yep.
because unlimited, it was
Mm.
unlimited kilometers a day. And so I was like, yeah, this works perfectly.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with the rental statement there, because I've done rentals as well, but flying to the location and renting afterwards because I have no choice but to
Yeah.
rent.
You
Um,
also got to carry everything
oh
too.
yeah,
That's the other part.
that's the crappy part with the flying portion of it, is like you get to your location and you're like, okay, how do I get around? Especially with an airsoft gun, you're gonna have to rent, unfortunately, or have a buddy with you there. I'm sure, David, you had a buddy
Yeah.
with there that was able to fly, drive you around and then get to the airport afterward. So this is what I'm gonna emphasize the most. Before
Mhm.
the most important thing before leaving Canada with your airsoft guns or equipment, um, is the paperwork. This is before you leave. How
Mhm.
much lead time do you think that we need to do the Memorandum D2-6-5? The BSF 407 form, formerly known as the Y38-1. How much lead time do you guys like recommend? Because for me, it was like 2 weeks before I left. I did it.
I did
Um.
mine well, depends on how you want to look at it. In my case,
Yeah.
I think I did mine once we determined we were going to go to the first Lion Claw. I think we did it like 3 months in advance.
Okay.
The next one was literally we're like, okay, yeah, we hit because we enjoyed the event. We wanted to go again. It was like, okay, we have new guns. We want to go. We could be talking, I think, 9 months in advance. But we
Wow.
hadn't even planned. But they hadn't even announced the next Lion Claw event, and we had already went and registered the guns because there is no the forms don't expire.
Nope, they don't expire. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can, if you go, I want to take this whatever airsoft gun it is you want to the
Yeah.
States,
You
you
can
can
do it
go at
multiple
any time
times.
you want
Yeah.
and multiple times.
Mhm.
You could have, I have one of my forms here. It only has one gun on it because in whatever, and if you lose that form, don't worry about it. Just take the gun back and
Mhm.
re-register it. It's not
Yeah.
the end of the
And
world because all that form is, it's not a, this is a guarantee, whatever. No, this is just a help stack the deck
Mhm.
in your favor to
yeah.
make getting across the border easy. Like by the sounds of it here, Schoolboy, he got through nice and easy. That was my
Yeah. I
experience the
did.
first time going through as well. So
I think
Dave,
I
Yeah. For
I
what about you, David?
I did my man. Like well, I kind of was busy and I procrastinated a bit. I was like, because I did it once before. I'm like, well, I'll just push it off a little bit and do it right up until the end. So I did it exactly 2 days before my flight,
Oh
and it
wow.
was
Okay.
pretty easy. I have a CBSA office that's about 2 blocks from where I live,
Oh,
so I
lucky.
just walk
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Makes your life easy too. It's
Oh
a little
yeah.
green ticket
If you
your
guys want to
little
show,
green
if you
golden
guys want to
ticket.
show the camera what your yeah, there you go. It's the same one as mine
Yeah,
still. Paul has a bunch.
yeah. It's the So for anybody who's looking for it, I mean, they give you the technical abbreviation, but if you go to the CBSA agent, sometimes they don't know what it is. So you can just say an identification of articles for temporary exportation. It's the same thing that you would use if you're taking like expensive camera equipment or
Oh, we
And
lost
we've
him.
lost him.
Oh
Oh.
no, he was giving us
So
a perfect
I can
explanation.
continue on that as well.
Yeah,
It's
go ahead.
basically whenever you have anything that's he's coming
And
back.
there we go.
back.
Okay, he's back. There you go. Sorry, you can continue on. Yep.
It's just a nice item basically that says that you're temporary exporting items that are owned in Canada. It's not actually for American border services or agents. It's actually for the CBSA
Canadians,
upon return. So it makes your life easier coming back into the country versus if you want to wing it, you could totally wing it and literally take your stuff over. But the real question then comes, are you going to be able to bring your stuff back? So it's a nice piece of insurance. And most CBSA agents that I've dealt with, at least using this form, it puts them at ease almost immediately because they're like, oh, this guy goes out of his way.
Yeah.
So, we're not going to make it hard. And it was funny because, like I said, reentry for me, I did my declaration at the airport. Geico's like, I see you have declared weapons on your flight. What do you have with you? I'm like, I got a bunch of airsoft guns. He's like, cool, just go to secondary screening once you have them. I went right over to secondary, gave him my form. He goes, are all the items on this form in this case? And I said, yes. And he says, okay, have a nice day. Didn't even bother opening it up.
Sometimes they're that easy. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
going to be hard, and that's where your card comes in.
That
or,
was that was my first time coming back. We showed up at the border. It's like probably I think 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We were like a 45-minute in lineup wait. Come up there.
Oh, dude, I
talk
showed
to
up
the
at
window,
4 a.m.
and it's like we're there. I'm driving across at Peace Arch, and it's also just like the guys there is like, what were you down for? Airsoft event? Did you win? Well, if we didn't, we were surprised. He goes, excellent. He's like, welcome home. Didn't even ask for the forms. So I'm like, sweet. So the next time we go, I basically had all the same stuff. Second time, 2.5 hours I was spent in secondary.
Wow.
And nothing will ever beat. Once we finally cleared secondary, I walked out to my vehicle. There were 6 CBSA officers shoulder to shoulder. Because I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, great, they let me out. They say I'm free to go and I'm gonna get fucking tackled by these guys. No, they were there because they'd taken every single airsoft gun we brought down and we'd bought some down there and brought them back. They had them all piled up because they didn't know where they went back and what cases. So there's a pile, and you guys know I bring lots of airsoft guns. I only brought down like 4, but the problem was that's 4 for me. But the problem was I had to rent a passenger vehicle because there were 7 of us in total that went.
God.
4
Yeah.
drove,
Oh
3
my
flew.
gosh.
So we took all bunch of other people's guns with us. There was a pile of like 30 airsoft guns on the bench beside it, and you just have this wall of CBSA people, and literally as cars are going through the secondary,
They're just blocking it off so that people can't see.
so people don't see a
Yeah.
giant pile of guns, and they're like, how fast can you do this? My friends are like, we don't remember what cases he's going to. I'm like, we don't care what cases he's going to. I'm like, fill a case, throw it in the van. I'm like, we'll work it out when we get back to my house.
Oh my
And it was,
Yeah.
we packed it. We're just like,
God.
stuff, like every gun case that could fit something in it. We didn't care. It was like, okay, this gun case normally holds 2 guns. It's got 6. Like we
Yeah, that
just
sounds
stuffed
about right.
everything we could in there, stuffed it all in the van as best we could. I'm just like Tetris music going in my head while we're trying to get this all going,
Oh man.
and just packed it and gone. And the only reason we were there for 2.5 hours is because one of the people I went with didn't check his case that he was storing stuff in. Yep. Thanks,
Oh,
Dave.
and
He had a gun in there that wasn't
he
registered.
said the stupid
Oh
question.
my
Of
God.
course.
He had
Okay.
he had one of those G&G CO2 revolvers in there.
Yeah.
I got livid because we didn't even know that was in there. I trusted him to check his own stuff. When we got to the hotel, we were loading it, and his case fell over and it spilled out. Because I said, make sure you only bring what you guys need. And of course, when it spilled out, all of a sudden I see a motor. I'm like, okay, whatever. He does his own tech work, but he wrote NFG on it.
No fucking good.
So yeah, we all know that means it doesn't work. It's not
Yeah,
good. So
what-
I literally
where's
the next day I picked him up at the airport. I threw the motor at him. I'm like, I told you, only bring what is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told him, I'm like,
Yeah.
if they take your revolver, I'm like, I will not fight for you to get that back.
And rightfully
100%,
so.
yeah.
Rightfully
Why
so.
would you even try and bring that? Like, oh my
And so
god.
even though we had everything documented and everything, they were like, well, we could take and test all of your guns.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would happen, I would have lost a bunch of my guns, because at that time, I was using the KWA E or G, and the O-ring on the cylinder
really
or whatever it
poopy.
is on
Oh,
the
wow.
inside, it broke. But the thing was still performing beautifully. I was still getting like 200 foot plus shots. It's just, you could be like, oh, look, here's the BB. Like, because it was moving so slow, but it was
Mhm.
beautifully done that way. So I'm like, I would lose like 4 guns. And
Oh,
some of our
shoot.
guys, they bought guns down there. Like one of the guys, he
Yeah.
bought a brand new KWA Crytek. Like, they were still new. Oh, no, sorry, not KWA, just like the Crytek. It
Mhm.
broke on the first shot.
Hmm.
So here it is. He
Yeah.
bought, it's a brand new gun, but now if it's going to be tested, it's not going to work.
It's
Right.
illegal
You know, the
now.
only
No, it's
you know the
illegal.
only
So-
irony behind that is the chances of them doing that are still like extremely low, because it's
Oh,
more
very.
inconvenient for them.
Yeah.
It's like more time that they have to take out of their day versus just like take your stuff and get out of here type
They
deal.
got better things to do, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it
It-
was,
but it also goes to show, like, if you register your stuff and go out of your way basically to make paperwork easier for them in some ways, they won't really give you as much of a hard time,
Yeah.
because then you're
Yeah.
like, you're doing your due diligence, versus being the dude that shows up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
exactly. And Mac and I can speak on that fact for when we went down to the States for our first event as well. On our first MSW event, we went through and we had filled out all those forms and we had all gone through. And when we got there and we're trying to hand them in or
Try and
declare them,
display them. Yeah.
the lady was like, "Oh yeah, I don't care about these. You don't need to." And she literally had dismissed every, and we're like,
Well-
and this was after we had already had talked to Paul, I'm pretty sure, and
Yeah.
like we had asked people about this, and they were like, "No, you got to do this." So we get, and literally, she like was like, "Oh, what are you going down for? Airsoft? Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead." And we're like, "Okay, all right." So we get through. We also knew like the transport rules that they had and stuff like that. Like that, we got warned about that. Like just keep it in your
Mhm.
bag and everything like that, just because of the whole
Yeah.
them not having an orange tip. But they said if you're going to an event or whatever it is and you take it out there on private property,
That's fine.
don't-
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they don't
Yeah.
care. It's more
Yeah.
along the lines of he's like, if the state trooper pulls you over, he's like, you might
He's
have
like,
to
"Hey,
explain a
this
few
is-
things.
yeah, it's like, hey, this isn't a real gun. It has to have a marked end on it in this state, blah 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 blah, kind of the whole thing. So as long as you had followed the proper procedure, then apparently they would have left you alone or whatnot, is what we got told for
it
that
was,
first time.
yeah, CYA thing. I think I remember talking to you about that. I was just like, you can pick up like orange tips for like $1 a piece or whatever
Yeah,
it was. I'm like, just
exactly.
pick them up, throw them on the gun. I'm like, you can take them off once you get to the field. It's just for transport. That's what I did for
Yeah.
both of my
Yeah.
line club events.
Yeah.
Where I could, I took the tip off, or we wrapped it in tape or whatever.
Mhm.
We actually took some spray paint on one of them, like put the Q-tip in the barrel, sprayed it with that. But we're like, we know we can take off that paint really easy because it was just how it was, just for transport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And made sure it had the proper or whatever, just to be safe. Now, did we ever get pulled over? No. Did I have any? I had 0 issues going into the States.
Yeah,
The guy was just like, "What are you down here for?" Going for an airsoft event. Okay.
yeah.
But it was like, have you guys ever been convicted of a crime? No.
Nope.
Have you ever been fingerprinted? Well, I was like, yeah.
Passport,
And
yeah.
of course, why have you been fingerprinted? Well, I used to do security, and to get a security license, you had to be fingerprinted. And I'm like with 3 other people who are that. One of them was also in the Canadian Forces, and I'm like, yeah, he's Canadian Forces. This guy used to do security. This guy did security. He's like, oh, okay, then have a nice time.
Have a nice time.
Have a nice time.
Yeah, have a
Bye.
nice time. And the second time I went through, the guy was like, why are you coming across so early or late? And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
our insurance didn't take effect till now. I'm like, we waited till just after midnight to cross. He goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. Wouldn't want you to pay a lot of money on medical. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
The border guard knows.
just get screwed.
Because I'm like,
Oh,
it's an insurance company, and you know that if you went across
Yeah.
before, they go,
If
your
they
insurance
knew,
didn't take
yeah,
effect. No,
exactly.
and I'm like, no, I'm not
Mhm.
taking that risk. The
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then again, for when we went down for our second time, we did the same thing. We had filled out all our paperwork, although in the sense of like, instead of filling out the actual form, we made sure that everyone had a document of like, they made sure they noted everything. Everyone knew exactly what they had so that they wouldn't run into the same problem that Paul had run into with your friend. And when we did that, oh, sorry. So I got an alarm going off. Sorry. Yeah.
When we went and did that, we went through no problem. They were like, yeah, it's okay, blah blah blah. But on our way back, we did run into a problem, and we didn't run into a problem you would think
This is
of.
CBSA at this point coming back home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it ended up happening was the problem ended up being that one of our guys right,
Can I
Matt,
explain
you
it?
remember?
Can I explain it?
Yeah,
You can
go.
explain it, please,
Okay.
because it's practically the
as
same as
the
Paul's
driver-
situation. Yeah.
As the driver, okay, make sure you have if you're the person talking, you're the one talking. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't need other people like interjecting and saying like, oh, we did this also, or anything like that. Like, your passengers can be quiet. You give your passports to the border guards and everything like that. If the border guard asks you for your story, you give them the clear truth, right? There's no point in lying and everything like that. Lying only gets you more trouble. But yeah, like basically we had all had the same story when we were coming back, and it was so easy too, because we convoyed, right? So first car goes to tack. What were we? We were third car, right? Or something.
Yeah, we were like second
third
or
car out of
car,
five.
yeah.
Third
Yeah.
car out of five. And the fourth car just decided to what did he? I'm trying to remember exactly.
He said something really,
he said
really
or something.
Yeah, he said and laughed
And-
and a really
and the-
bad
and the border
time.
guard, like, he's like, oh, go happy lucky guy, right? He's a lovely guy. I love him.
Yeah,
Love you,
yeah.
Mark. And then he basically says something, and the border guard's like, what? Huh? Aren't you coming in with the boys that are coming through this convoy? I was like, yeah. Off secondary. There you go.
Yeah.
All of you went to
Off
secondary too?
secondary.
Oh,
No,
man.
just him. And then the fifth car comes behind. It's like, yeah, I'm with the Airsoft team. We're just coming back from Airsoft. Boom, goes through. So now all of us are sitting at the gas station here going, where the hell is the fourth car? Like, what the heck, right? Like,
What happened?
oh my God. And they all got pulled out and everything. And
They got checked for everything. They had to
Yeah.
go through and explain everything that they had. So they didn't run into as serious a problem as you would have thought. But at the same time, it's just like what Matt was
just a
saying,
hassle.
right? Like, it's very clear on the whole thing. It's just like, be quiet, talk when you're being spoken to, and just be clear and concise. That's about it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's not about bullshitting when you're at that point, because it's about
Exactly.
No,
getting in and out.
You don't want to do that. You don't
Well,
want to do that at all.
and you're not playing something where it's like oh, I have these replica unregulated fire. Like, shut the fuck up, okay? Like, I'm sorry for my language, because it's just like, it's what do you have? I have airsoft guns,
Yep.
and I'm coming back from an airsoft event.
Yeah.
Do not
The other part-
do not provoke. Like, if they don't ask, don't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Do
it,
not carry a
that's it.
conversation.
If they say, what is that? Then you can go into it. But
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had
The
somebody
other
like
part
that
too-
in my first time coming back. He's like, shouldn't we? I'm like, no. I'm like, we'll have all the forms ready to go if he asks for them.
100%.
If he doesn't ask for them, he doesn't get them.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, yes. Only
Wait, it's the way
provide
it
what is
works.
needed. Do
Yeah.
not give them
is this
anything
the part
extra.
where we're segueing off to like problems now? Because I got an interesting story to tell.
Okay, I want to hear this. There we
Let's
go.
hear this. Let's hear this.
So as everyone knows, I flew 4 times basically total. So the second time that I would schedule the flight, this was out of JFK.
Mhm.
So fun fact, New York State, airsoft guns, totally legal. Perfectly fine. New York City, airsoft guns fall under classifications as firearms. You need a permit to own them. This is only in New York City. So JFK, unironically enough, is under the jurisdiction of New York City, even though it's an international airport.
So it should be a
Now,
state thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so granted, we weren't staying in New York City. None of them lived in New York City. We're in upstate New York, so we were traveling down to the airport and leaving through the airport down to Georgia. Now the kicker is it sits in kind of a gray zone. So you can technically legally transport through New York City with either firearms or airsoft, so long as you're not stopping. You're basically going through to your destination. That's it. There's no sort of like, so I stop here, I stop there on the way, because that's when you run into the problem. So we go through the airport, we go through like security check and TSA and everything. And they had Port Authority come down basically to verify what we had in the context of our cases. But unfortunately for us, one of the new guys who was only with them for 6 months, he was a nice guy in the end. He said firearms a few times over the radio. So we set the whole airport off, is a nice way to put it. And it's like like 6 in the morning ish, and it's relatively busy. But anyways, we got through security fine. We got through TSA fine, no issues. And we're booking it basically to our gate now because we're running to get there so we don't miss the flight, because TSA takes God knows how long forever to get through at times. We get to our gate and there's the new guy, the rookie dude, standing there, and another guy, and it turned out to be a sergeant. And they're both Port Authority, and we're thinking, oh, okay, maybe they're just here to make sure we get on our flight and, you know, get out safely. Anyways, so the sergeant stops us and goes, "We're sorry, guys, but you're gonna have to rebook your flights. We're gonna have to take you upstairs, and we're gonna have to write you up for a summons." So 3 of us are like looking at each other. We're like, "Hold on a second. We're getting a court order right now. What exactly did we do?" And he like pulls up the penal code on his phone and shows us the penal code. And then my buddies are both from New York State, you know, and they start doing the talking. They're like, "But we're not actually coming from New York City. We're just coming through New York City, and we're going through the airport directly to our destination." We explained what we were going down to and everything like that. And the crazy part is this sergeant was kind of like put on guard because his buddy who had done the report went from saying firearms to airsoft guns. So he didn't know because he wasn't there to verify it at the time when we opened up the cases and showed them, because they were fine with it at that point and beforehand. So he goes, "Oh, okay, but you know, like," and then all of a sudden, like somewhere in between, it was like 360. The sergeant had like a change of heart, and he was like, "You know what? You guys seem like nice guys. I'm not gonna stop you guys. Consider you guys yourselves like really lucky. I believe you guys are doing exactly what you're doing. So we're gonna get you on the plane." So we're like kind of like juiced up on like nervous juice and like excited, like, "Oh my God, we're gonna go. We're not gonna get new. Yeah, we're not gonna get New Yoinked." So we get all the way down basically
New Yoinked.
we get onto the plane, and we're about to go sit down on our seats. And the rookie guy goes, "Sorry guys, you gotta come off again." And we're like, "What?"
Oh my
So we
God.
come off again.
Fuck off.
And he's
Fuck
like,
off.
and we're like standing there in the, I guess like in the, I can't remember what you call it, but basically like the thing that you walk onto the plane.
The tarmac
And the sergeant,
or some shit?
no, not
Or
the
no?
tarmac. We were standing in the loading
It's
portion.
the bridge.
So the bridge. Yeah, thank you. So the sergeant comes walking down. He's like,
Gangway.
"Listen, I'm really
Gangway.
sorry, guys, but
Thank you, BC, for
Delta is screwing you guys over." We're like, "What do you mean Delta's screwing us over?" And he's like, "I didn't tell them to pull the bags, and they pulled your bags. But now Delta doesn't want to load the bags back on the plane because they think it's a security risk, even though I told them to load them back on the plane, even though I never authorized them to." And we're like, "What?" And so he goes, "So listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go get your bags. We're going to go back upstairs, and we're going to get you on another flight." And this was the crazy part of the whole thing. So Port Authority in New York and New York City, New Jersey, are not necessarily known for being really great to deal with. They did a whole 360 and ended up looking out for us the entire time until we got onto a second plane and got down to Georgia, which was wild.
Oh,
And
that's
like,
really nice.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. And we like, the joke was like, you know, you're trying to catch a flight out of JFK, but you're catching the felony instead, straight to jail. So it's
Straight to jail.
not past go.
yeah.
Undercooked
So
chicken.
like, so
Undercooked chicken.
oh my God, the kicker was like for me, because we had to go through security and the check-in again. So the sergeant was finally there to see all our stuff, and they verified it, and they're like, "Cool, this stuff is actually pretty cool," you know. And they started chatting with us, and they were like, I think there were about 6 Port Authority officers with us, just shooting the shit basically, which we thought was funny. They got me to basically sign for all the guns because I had documentation and no one else did. So I ended up signing for 2 cases and like 6 GADs total. And I didn't catch on right away. And the sergeant came up to me. He's like whispering. He's like, "We want you to sign for the guns because you have paperwork that's more official, and we don't want to deal with paperwork."
Holy.
Which was really funny. The moral of the story: don't fly through JFK if you can avoid it. Go through New Jersey. New Jersey is very friendly and easy, which was crazy to me. Yeah,
And I think New Jersey is Newark Airport, if memory serves.
Newark.
Yep.
Yeah.
Newark. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been to New York once, but not for Airsoft. That was for just random vacation stuff.
Yeah, it's a great city to be in.
That's a great story to tell, especially when there's a lesson learned there.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
Oh yeah.
Ooh, Lee, fucking returned out of there.
So yeah, I guess we kind of diverted off there a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah, just remember to fill out your BSF 407 form. If you
Yeah.
need help with that, you could ask either one of us to help you out, because we'll just tell you you have to go to the CBSA office down close to, I think it's Science World. That's
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
one
that's
of them.
one-
You
that's
can
one
also
of
go to
them.
any line crossing as well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I did
You
not
can
know
go to
that.
you can go to any location where there's a CBSA officer and you can do it. I've actually, where I've done most of mine is at the Point Roberts crossing,
Okay.
because
Mhm.
I know most of the officers there and they know me. So it's because of that familiarity. The moment I walk in, the moment that most of them see me there, they're like, we know exactly who you are. We know what you're going to be dealing with when you're coming through here. So they're like, so to me, it's sometimes
Yeah.
really easy to deal with.
They should just have a ticket counter for you with just BSF 407 forms ready to go every
Yeah.
time. Just
Pretty
an
much.
individualized counter.
But do note the it is best to also read the memorandum, that D2-6-5,
Yeah.
so you have an idea of what's actually going to be involved there. Now, do note your airsoft gun needs to have a serial number on it, an
Mhm.
individualized serial number.
Oh,
So if it does not have a
If
unique
it doesn't
serial
have
number or
one,
something
they'll
along
give you
those
one.
lines,
Yeah.
you
hold on.
have to have
I
one
can bring
installed.
I can bring that up. So if you don't have one, ask for the serialization stickers that they provide, which are like these little shitty yellow stickers
With the
with
Canada
a serial
sign
number
on
on
it.
it and a Canada sign on the top.
I didn't
Get
know those
those.
existed.
Yeah, they'll give you tons of those if you want, and you can slap them on everything. On that point too, if you're taking your airsoft guns with you and any other articles that is going on it that's relatively expensive, you should also serialize those as well. It's just a good habit to get into, because then you have like a laundry list of things there basically that all fall under that. Because for whatever reason, if they decide that they don't like something that you have on it, they can still take it. So it's a little bit easier just to kind of mark everything.
I have a funny
And
story for the
yeah.
serialization. When I have one of my airsoft guns that I took down there had a laser engraving with basically some sort of generic serial number,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they still took it. even though it was like a fake serial number down. It didn't even.
Had to
Yeah.
write it down, eh?
Yeah. Then they literally
Yeah.
just wrote it down.
It's a
It was
fake
literally.
serial number unique to that gun.
I guess out of many guns that they've made. But
I
anyways,
don't think it goes. Yeah, I don't ever think it goes into a system though. That's
no,
the
it
thing.
doesn't.
It literally lives on your paper.
It's just on the paperwork.
Yeah.
That's it. You get
Yeah,
one
and you
copy.
can't
They get
laminate
one
it either. If
copy.
you laminate it, it's invalid.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just the form is basically just to make sure that, like when you travel back, they know that you didn't
Mhm.
purchase it there, because there are some taxations that you have to go through if you purchase something from the States and then coming back with it. So that's the only reason that you want to do that. But for airsoft guns especially, you want to do that so that they know that it came from Canada or
Mhm.
imported from Canada to Canada, and then now you're just temporarily leaving and then coming back again. So yeah, include things like your real steel scopes, NVGs, D-ball, airsoft guns that you're bringing in.
Anything you
Yeah.
care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for
Yeah.
Gravy in the text box there, the serialization thing is you just need to make sure whatever item it is has a unique serial number, so that way it can be registered on your paper.
Exactly.
Where anywhere on the item, according to Dave, I didn't know, this is something new I've learned today. CBSA sometimes provides some sort of
Yeah.
specialized
Yeah.
sticker that you can put on that rules, so you can give it a serial number. It's just basically a way to identify that
Mhm.
specific item. Is all it really is.
It
Where it is on
could
the
be
item,
that
it can be
fake
anywhere,
engraving
really.
that I had. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Mhm.
Well, I mean,
One.
heck,
Yeah, go ahead.
not to cut you off, like I went overkill. I used the serial numbers that were on the items already, and I put the stickers on them as well, just in
Okay.
case.
There you go.
Oh,
Um,
overkill is better than no kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one to make sure of is be sure when you're going to the CBSA office to have the airsoft gun in a lock case, or
Or at
entering the
least they
CBSA
do.
office, or else they are armed officers. So
Yeah, make sure it's in a gun case of any
just
kind.
be sure about that, because I've heard horror stories of people entering the CBSA with their rifles.
Gun
Oh my
bags.
god.
Yeah, make sure it's a
like-
minimum a gun bag.
Yeah,
and then
gun bag at
yeah.
least.
put it on
yeah.
the tell them what you're here for.
Yeah.
What I did was I told them what I'm here for. I'm holding it. Then I put it on the counter, and it's literally
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah, that
I
was
go, do you want me to open it for you? And most often they're like, yes, open it for me. And
That
it's
was
like,
the-
okay. And you just warn them like, okay, this is what I'm presenting to you, whatever. I tell them so they are not surprised. Because
Yeah,
the
that
worst
that
thing
was
you want is somebody with a
nerve-wracking for
gun to
me.
be
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Because I had like an awkward long case as well for just like an M4. Because back then I purchased like a long I wanted to bring a hard case just in case, right? So it was long and awkward. It was for designed for sniper rifles. I told the front counter, I think it was Paladin Security or something, be like, I have an airsoft gun. He's like, a what? And they're like,
We'll get into that.
I
Tony.
have a rifle. It's like, what? And I'm like,
What?
airsoft gun,
What?
toy
What?
gun, toy gun.
What? Yeah, exactly.
He's
Like,
like,
you gotta take
oh,
a few
okay,
steps back.
take a
It's just
number,
like,
sit down. I'm like, oh god, I'm already sweating.
Yeah, so it's kind of the
Metro,
same-
you
it's-
want to leave them on.
Yep,
It-
100%.
it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing too. If you're going to fly with airsoft guns, when you go up to the ticket counter, essentially to check in your bags, you have to go up and
Declare it right away.
100%
So
right away.
So like the first thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna be like, "Hi, can I please get a firearms declaration? I have airsoft guns with me." And they kind of give you like a weird look and like, "You have firearms with you?" And you're like, "No, airsoft
Yeah.
guns. They look like real guns, but they're actually toys. They shoot
Yeah.
BBs."
yeah, exactly.
Like twice, like I had the agent basically like call a manager and go blah 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 over the phone, and then finally
Airsoft
give me
guns.
the form. Yeah, and it's super easy. You like fill it out. The only super sus part is you have to open your case in the airport.
Yeah.
Throw one of the one of the ends of the ticket in, and then you have the other piece with you, and it has to stay with you. And it is a little bit weird when there's like a lineup of people behind. You're
And
like,
then you open up
hold
the
on a
case.
second. Yeah, and you're like, I got to do this and not look like I'm gonna, kind of try to take down the place. So
Get eyes on you for the rest of the flight.
yeah,
Yeah, so the
back
reason you
and it's
throw
like-
that sheet in there is because they when it goes through the X-ray, it has a little indicator that they know what's
Yeah.
inside it already.
it's also too. So if they decide to like take you over for secondary screening, they want to make sure that it's yours. They need to open it up. It's all your articles are in there. It's funny though. Like I had a really good time flying with airsoft guns, which was kind of ridiculous. I didn't expect it to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. I was anticipating it to be like, okay, I'm going to spend a lot of time in security. I actually did, which is the crazy
And
part.
I found the
Because
same
you did
way
the
as well.
prep work, exactly,
Yeah.
right?
I found the same thing as well as you discovered. It was fairly easy to fly with it. Just make sure you follow the rules and regulations that the
Mhm.
like airlines, airport, and local authority.
Oh, on
Those are
one
the
thing
big
I do
ones.
need to one thing I do need to like point out: don't fly with BBs. BBs are treated the exact same as
That's
ammunition.
yeah.
So everything needs to be unloaded. Make sure
Mm.
you clear the BBs out of your bloody case too. If you're one of those messy airsofters with like a gun case and it's like BBs
With those
rolling
BBs
everywhere,
underneath the phone.
you should
yeah.
probably clean it up
Mhm.
because they treat that as ammo. And if they see any of it around,
It'll
if
show up on
you're
X-ray for
carrying
sure. Yeah.
yeah, or if you're carrying like a bag of it with you too, you have to do a separate declaration for that, and you have to have a separate case to transport that in your locked case or external from your locked case that's in another locked case.
Yeah.
So just avoid it altogether.
They treat it
Yeah.
as a real firearms. I've
And
traveled
one
both.
thing
Yeah, go ahead.
for flying guys, if you're running HPA or
Oh, that's a
blowback,
big one.
they
Yeah,
need
degas
to
all
be
your stuff.
they need to be degassed, and not just degassed. Your valve needs to be taken out.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it
So
doesn't
especially on the gas
pressurize.
blowback, so
Pressurization,
the
yeah.
exit valve
Yeah.
that needs to be actually removed from the magazine. Same thing
That
with your HPA tanks. The top regulator needs to be removed, and the tank, of course, has to be empty.
That brings me back to take out all your batteries and your accessories. Don't fly with batteries in your flashlights or
Yeah.
your optics.
Or your
Because
numb
the
or anything.
Yeah, the pressurization can cause the battery to either expand and actually get stuck, or in some cases seep and damage your unit, especially if your case is not self-regulating with pressure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the other part too is if you're an AEG guy and you have all your batteries, you have to carry it in a LiPo bag, and it needs to come with you on your personal baggage that you go into the plane with. You cannot put it in checked baggage because it's a fire hazard. And for whatever reason, if there's if one of your batteries decides to yeet itself on the plane, you can at least put it out in the cabin. Whereas if you have it underneath, it's technically a felony, and you can probably cause the plane to burn down and explode, and everyone dies.
And
So
I
don't
believe
do
there
that
is a
stuff.
limitation to the number of batteries or the
Nope.
weight of the batteries. Okay, I wasn't 100% sure. I remember hearing somebody
Are
say
you
that there's
talking
a
about
limitation
the
to
limitations
the number you
of
can take per person.
milliamp hours for the
No,
battery? You mean?
no,
No, I mean like
it's-
actual physical
if-
number. Like you can't bring
if-
more than X number of batteries.
If I
No,
recall, a
I-
single
I-
battery can't be more than I think it's 20,000 milliamp hours, because I know for my
It's 20.
well,
It's
phone.
20,000 milliamp hours. Yep.
Yeah, off of
Well,
my
I
like.
easily
I
exceeded
have
that,
to deal with
so-
electronics when traveling as well. So yeah, I looked up the rule on how much it's 20,000 on a
Yeah.
laptop battery on like a single one of those
Oh, 20,000.
battery pack.
Okay.
Yeah. It's 20,000. for any-
20,000.
That's good
any-
for like
a-
what 1.5 games for me.
Well, and that's for any single battery, right?
Yeah.
And that's just flight storage and stuff like that. So when
Yeah.
it's and that's a little tip for anyone also listening for any kind of
It-
other battery products. If you're trying to order online, the biggest capacity you're gonna end up finding is probably gonna be the 20,000, because that's
Yeah.
as big as they can actually get.
They had to implement that rule based on, remember the Note 8, I believe, when they started blowing up.
Kaboom.
Yeah, they had
Oh,
to
yeah,
put a
yeah.
limitation on that because of the fact that it would cause a fire, especially those LiPo batteries that they had in there.
Mhm.
Like that's another one too. I didn't actually put that down, but yeah, batteries are one of those things where you gotta make sure that that's in a LiPo bag as well, just in
Yeah,
case.
Yeah.
you have.
And if you are
have to
driving,
transport.
same
Yeah.
thing. Sorry to cut you off there,
Yeah.
Dave.
No, it's all
When
good.
driving, you want to make sure that they're in a lipo safe bag or container. When I drove with them, I have one of those old ammo cans, the metal ones.
Yeah.
And it has I make sure the seal is good on it, so that way if it does pop inside, there's such little amounts of oxygen in there, the thing's going to burn out its own oxygen supply before anything, whatever. And I'll be able to get to it, get it out of the vehicle, and deal with the situation at that time.
Mhm.
So it's just,
Sure.
it's good to have those lipo-safe bags to transport your stuff, even when you're not flying, even while
Mhm,
driving,
mhm.
just because it's. And then in our case here, when we drove down, we had them in lipo-safe bags inside of that ammo can.
Yeah.
That way, it was
Okay.
just we had a double level of protection. Why? CYA.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
literally like when it comes to anything airsoft like this, it's always CYA. Better to do the extra step now and not need to do that extra step than have to all of a sudden
Especially when
realize
you're
you needed that step.
traveling and something like that happens, then like
Yeah,
that
you don't-
extra
you don't
inch
wanna
goes a
fly
mile.
long.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Speaking
And
of
then
yeah, go ahead.
I think the only other aspect we haven't really touched on is transportation of gear and things like that too.
Yeah,
Because
I was
of-
actually moving up
yeah.
to locking up your airsoft guns
Oh, well,
and
good
storage
timing.
mhm.
because of the fact that you need technically when I looked it up, TSA and CBSA didn't really have a guideline for how
Yeah.
to store your airsoft guns, but from the gun community from up here and down south as well, they recommend. This is looking at the lawyer's website, by the way. They recommend to have 4 latching points on a hard case, and this is a hard
Mhm.
case, not a gun bag, not a one of those like zip up gun bags. A hard case that cannot be like easily opened or pried open or anything, and a single locking point or double locking point. Single locking point is good, somewhere in the middle or on the sides, so that people can't pry it open when you transport it to the airport. So yeah, they say recommended a minimum of 4 locking points. It has to be either hard plastic or metal. Just like the Pelican ones, the hard plastic ones, or a gun, like a metal gun case one. Those are great to have, and have a padlock on it. So those are the minimums of transportation
Yeah.
for airsoft guns. So it's not in any written regulations. It is mentioned that it has to be a lock case. That's about it for both CBSA and TSA websites.
So when I flew with mine,
Yeah.
the big thing with the lock part, which the TSA will point out to you, is if your case only has 2 hard points out of 4 that have metal, sort of like what is it, like a metal cover or sheath to help reinforce it.
Yep.
You only need to lock
Mhm.
those 2 points. You don't need to lock all 4.
Okay.
The
And then
corners, yeah, exactly.
one of the things that people always say is, oh, use TSA approved locks. Suggestion: don't go heavier duty and buy like hard case sort of like padlock styles that you would put on like a storage unit, or like if you're actually going to like close a door and lock it from from external source side.
Yeah.
Right.
You either can use like the dowel locks. I prefer keys, so you have one key for both locks, and then that way, if you ever need to open the case for an authority figure, basically to allow them to verify what's in the contents, they need to physically come to you first, because TSA sometimes, and this is a big one, especially for like guys in the States, and this is what I got told. The reason why to do that is because if the TSA wants to, they'll pop the locks and go in your case, and they'll rat fuck all your stuff basically, and look through it if they want to, and then close it back up, and they won't put new locks on it. So then you're either left standing there having to go buy locks physically in the airport to relock the case in front of them, or you have a harder lock that they need to track you down to physically open it. And then the last piece is like, every time you open the case for authorities to look at, take pictures of the contents in it, because if anything in there goes missing for whatever particular reason, you're held liable. But at the same time too, if someone takes it, you can at least claim it, because then it's physically there and you have evidence too. Like, it's a big deal, especially like with things going missing. It should be the same thing with your luggage too. Like when you're transporting all your personal accoutrement kit, you should just lock it by second nature, and it should be a heavier lock versus the cheaper ones.
Okay. And for you guys, let's start off with the flight part. When you're transporting gear, like plate carriers and stuff, did it seem like they cared about it when they looked at it? Because for me, when I travel, I just put my plate carriers on my regular luggage, like without any mags or anything, without any BBs. Dear God, take out any freaking BBs, guys.
Yeah.
So for check baggage side of house, like if you're gonna put all your gear in it, I have I like to call it my big red fuck off bag. I transport all my stuff in there. I take it to the field too. That bag is kind of my travel bag as well too. So it holds everything. They didn't even so much as blink or wink an eye to even open it. Yeah. And I had a lot of stuff in there too. So I was like, man, like if I have to open this, holy smokes, like there's a lot of kit in here. Yeah. I had an inventory list that I had made up on my phone for myself. So if I ever had to open it, I can go through it and physically check like that, make sure that everything is there. They don't really seem to care too much. One thing that I will say this much, because I do know that there are airsofters out there who buy plates as well. Yeah. Like if you can do that, don't fly with plates. You can fly with training plates or fake stuff, but don't ever carry real stuff, because you need to check. That's a whole other thing, is if you're going to transport body armor for whatever godforsaken reason, you need to check the laws on transporting body armor, because if they decide that they're going to go through your stuff and they find it, if you don't have a permit or a license to hold that in that state or in that place, you can get yoinked. So it's not something that's worth doing. It's a big deal too. So like try to be cognizant with that kind of stuff. And yeah, like Koi said, like take your magazines out, make sure they're with your guns, like scrap all your stuff of like BBs or any excess stuff, because there are messy airsofters out there. And you don't want to be that guy basically who gets dinked for something that you didn't think was in there.
Yeah. Same goes with like things like gas canisters or anything like that. That don't bring.
Yeah,
just
don't
buy
have
them
any
on
of
site.
that.
Just buy them on site.
Yeah, don't have any of that. Don't have. And same thing with pyrotechnics. Like for goodness sake, like
oh
man,
God.
don't even go.
Leave
there.
those
Like,
Enola gays at home, guys.
Use them or lose them.
Well, buy them there.
Don't bring them back.
Yeah,
leave them with a friend.
Buy them on site. Expend them. Make sure you don't have any of them when you come back. That's not something you want to get in trouble with. It's not even worth it.
And if you want to go the extra mile, I know you did this, David, is the trigger locks. This is more for my I do this when I travel domestically as well. When I traveled back to Ontario, back and forth when I was airsofting, I had trigger locks on both of my airsoft guns that I transported. This is just because in Canada, it's not treated as a toy. Federally in the US, it's treated as a toy. Over here, it's not. So I considered it like, adding that extra little feature. Hey, I'm abiding by your law. Like this looks like a firearm, but here
I know,
you
but
go.
you didn't need to do it. It's just an extra mile.
You don't need to do it like by any means. But I mean, if you want that extra bit of like brownie points, basically for security, and you put trigger locks on your stuff, like they'll look at it and they go, whoa, like Okay, so
What?
you're very serious about transporting
Yeah,
it.
but then I'll just
They'll
take
laugh
it
at you,
more
but you're like,
seriously.
well, I mean, if someone didn't have it, would you be concerned? Like,
No,
Mhm.
No,
no,
not
Better safe
homie,
than
necessarily.
it's an
sorry.
airsoft
Yeah.
gun.
yeah.
But
where my concern
even then,
ends.
like I didn't have anybody raise any like extra alarms. I actually had one of the Port Authority guys when he was looking, he's like, "Oh, you got trigger locks in yours? This is pretty smart." And then he looks over at my buddies in the States. He's like, "How come you guys don't have them?" It's like, "Oh, we don't need them."
No, exactly though. But that's all I'm saying. It's all, I don't know. I
I
would
mean,
just
it's
laugh.
up to you.
I would
It's
just laugh.
it's preference
Yeah.
up to you. It's not
It's up to your discretion.
something that they've written down. But again, living in Canada, knowing like
You
having
still,
my
you don't even need to do that in Canada, boy. Stop
no,
framing it like
I'm
that.
not. I'm not. But like when you're traveling back, do I want to risk
No,
like
technically, if you're flying though with airsoft guns in Canada, you should be doing that because it's required for your firearms, regardless of
Yeah.
whether they're prohibited
So,
or
again,
pardon me,
we get-
airsoft
we
are
get
restricted or
treated-
unrestricted.
we get
Uncontrolled
Yeah.
firearms.
yeah, we get treated
Yeah.
the same as firearm owners, right? I don't want
Now
to take the
driving
risk, right?
back.
Yeah.
This
So
is where we
driving
need to
back,
have a flow chart.
the trigger locks are your choice when
Yeah.
driving. When flying, I would 100% use the trigger locks as a CYA.
Domestically in Canada?
Domestically
Yep.
flying in Canada, I would put them
Yeah.
on there.
Yep.
But at the same time, I would be driving. 'cause I
Again,
don't
we
like
get
flying.
we get treated as firearm
I
owners.
just don't know if
right?
that's. I don't know.
You know,
Okay,
you know
I
the
get it.
truth is it's
Try
it's more
flying.
worthwhile.
I will
Yeah.
try flying, boy. I'll go to an event.
In a
do
plane,
it.
not without mechanical help.
You know what? It's to put it nicely, it's more worthwhile just to do it as an extra peace of mind because
Yeah.
it shows to them too that you take safety seriously over it. And like I'll say this much for you guys: if you're going to get hard cases to fly, please, for the love of God, do not slap all your morale stickers all over it.
What do you
Just
mean, man? Loyal to the mission, dude.
Just
Dude.
have it.
Dude, what
Have
do you
it, like-
mean? Fog,
Hey,
just
bro.
man,
Infidel.
yo,
Have it
Yo,
incognito.
spirit
Because
you know what?
I will
systems. What do you
send
will say
mean?
nudes, brother. Send
Bro,
nudes.
hype
Send
gear,
nudes, yes.
please, bruh.
Dude, they would look at mine and it's just literally memes, all
How
right?
are they gonna know I'm the Nod father? Like,
I
Yeah.
will say this much. We
I
did get a
don't-
lot of questions from other passengers while we were in lineup basically with these cases. And it's a lot easier to look at people and go, "Oh, it's camera equipment," quietly, so they don't start prying what you're flying with. Because the last thing you want to do is make a scene. It's better to be that dude
you don't
that's
want to brag
incognito.
about your stoner LMG that you've spent like
No.
thousands of dollars on and it performs really super uber great and
Not to
okay,
the
oh
public.
yeah, okay, all
Not
right.
to
Not
the
to the
public.
public.
Copy that. Yeah, yeah. The lady that's visiting her aunt in Delaware, she doesn't need to know
Yeah.
about that or anything.
It's sort of- it's
Hey,
sort of
maybe
this-
she's
it's
into
sort of
it. Who
the same-
knows?
She
Because
could be
she's
into
one
it.
of those
Maybe her
bleeding hearts. No
grandson
one needs to
played.
own these things.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
no
just
place
it's just
is.
better. It's just better to kind of blend. I hate to say it like this. It's better to blend in with the crowd if you're going to go through public spaces with this and you're going to do everything right. Just don't be the person to kind of raise an alarm. It's not worthwhile because the last thing you need to do is have somebody on edge and then decide this person's very suspicious. Maybe I'm going to do my due diligence and call 911
100%.
because
Mm.
The
that
nail
could
that
happen.
sticks out is the one that gets hammered, right? So that's
Precisely.
basically how it goes down with that. And especially if you're trying to transport yourself through an
Yeah.
airport, like yeah, I won't lie, guys. You guys have the experience there. I don't when it comes to
Like-
to flying. So
You know,
like
the other part too is like you may look suspicious to the public, but think about it on the other end of the agents who are inspecting people going through to make sure that they're complying and there's not a whole bunch of suspicious stuff.
buddy,
if
he's
you're
gonna
the
ask
dude
me where
that's
I got
like-
that Haley strategic
but
rig.
that's
He's
their
gonna-
job, though.
He's gonna want to
TSA,
know.
CBSA,
Exactly.
they're responsible for security at our
Yeah, so the last thing you
borders.
want to do is like raise their alarms going, this guy looks real out of place right now. What the heck
Yeah.
is going on?
I don't know,
So
man.
it-
He's got a fog t-shirt. I might vibe with him.
You don't. But hey,
Yeah.
man, fog t-shirts aren't that bad, but you don't need a Punisher skull in all 5 cardinal points of your fucking vest.
Gotta represent.
I gotta do it, man.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've done like storage. Let's go to FPS, state laws, and orange tips. I know you guys dabbled on it a little bit. No, orange tips aren't required if that's your question.
Just go with it.
If you're going to an airsoft site, this as you guys mentioned, then you don't need orange tips. It's morely for manufacturers, import reasons. Certain states will require you to have orange tips, so make sure you check local state laws when you're
Yeah.
when you're in there. As far as FPS loss is concerned, it's basically the same as like what we have here. So there's really no concern going back and forth, unless you're coming back with the new airsoft gun from the States and you're importing it back over without the proper paperwork. Then that's on you, bud. That's on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did
I
have some
will- I
questions
will
in
s-
the text box about importing bot guns. I don't know when we're going to get to that, but I think.
Oh
still
yeah.
down
This is
the-
probably a
the
good
road
time
on
to
that.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to importing guns that you have bought in the United States, I have a small knowledge in this, not a lot, mind you. I'm only at, I think, 50 plus imported, not failed yet. The longest one did take me 14 months from start to finish. That was a used gun I bought, which that is the most dangerous thing you can buy and bring across over here.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Because if that person has upgraded it and changed it, but if the manufacturer says it shoots under, that's what took me so long. And also the border guy screwed up. So that story on that one is basically I bought a classic Army HPA M249. The border guard goes, well, classic Army says it shoots under. And I'm like, yes, but it's been modified, so it shoots over. I'm willing to have you take it and test it. He goes, sure, that's not a problem. And he handed it back to me. And he goes, but you have to now take care of it. So I had to go back across the border and I stored it where I use a little like parcel receiving place. And I'm like, hey, can I just pay you guys shipping while CBSA is I'm dealing with this issue with CBSA? Normally they do not do that. And they're like, you know what? That's fine. Your package is small enough. We can put it off to the side. And I paid storage for it for 3 months. And I'm like, hey, if it's still here in 3 months, I'll come and do another 3 months. So that's not a problem. It was there for 9 months
Oh my god.
of that process. And then CBSA calls me and goes, okay, we'll just have that border guard ship your item now. I'm like, oh, but I have the item. They made me store it back across. And like, oh, now you're going to start the whole process over again. Yeah.
Wow.
Now that's because the guard didn't know. I didn't know. That was unknown territory for me. So it had to be. So I started
Careful,
from scratch.
yeah.
So the first 9 months were basically whoopsie doodle.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
got screwed, and that's what took so long. And then, of course, then they sent it to Toronto
Yep.
to
do
the
test it.
testing,
yeah.
I had to supply the battery because it was a Polar Star. I supplied the air tank, the airline, everything, because all I had was just the gun. So I added all this other stuff, and I had them write up in the report and give me a copy that this is what needs to be tested. All of these other items were provided by him and must be returned. If the gun fails, they were going to destroy it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I talked to the guy, make sure whatever it was there. And when I made, I'm like, what PSI do I need to make sure that this thing will pass? He goes, it will for sure shoot 400 at whatever it was. And I give it a little bit extra just to be safe. And so that got shipped over to Toronto. It got chronographed. It passed. It came back. And now, because that one went through its own special thing, I actually have 5 pages of 8.5 by 11 paperwork that if that gun ever goes back into the States, has to come with me with that one.
Ooh.
I cannot register that one separately because it went through, it has its own CBSA report.
Yeah.
But otherwise, when it comes to importing stuff from the United States, it's the rules are it must be capable of shooting over 366 feet per second, which means if the manufacturer states it shoots 340 to 370, congratulations, you win. It's capable of shooting over. The maximum, now this is what a lot of people will tend to argue with me on this one, but I'm like, it's clear in the D19 I think 13-2 or 12 or whatever that one is. Yeah, 13-2. It specifically states 5.7 joules and 500 FPS, and that and is in bold and capitals.
Yep.
Now, 5.7 joules with a 0.2 gram BB, because that's what they use as industry standard, is of roughly 785 feet per second. There is only one airsoft gun I am aware of that is capable of meeting that requirement. Only
Pellet gun?
one.
Which
Only
one. Is it?
one.
Which one is it?
A pellet
The
gun?
intervention M200 with CO2 bolt.
Oh.
It can fire 570 feet per second with a .368 millimeter.
Oh.
Okay.
It is the
Good God.
only airsoft gun I'm aware of that is capable of meeting that out of the box.
Why do you need that?
You
This is with
don't.
the
Who-
CO2
why-
bolt. With the green gas
who
bolt, it
made
shoots
that?
significantly.
Why?
I don't remember who made it. It's the shell ejecting 8 millimeter version.
Why?
The shell ejecting? What?
Why?
Yeah, you know the 8 millimeter shell
my
ejecting
God.
intervention? Like, I want it, but at the same time,
No.
I'm like, ooh, I know if some of them exist in Canada, but they only have the green gas bolt.
Mhm.
But still, I'm like, I want it. Just
What
'cause
does
the
that
shell is
shoot?
different.
450?
I want to be the real sniper.
It shoots actually. The green gas one shoots within Panther's FPS limits
Get
based
out.
on
Oh, that's
joules. I'm not
crazy.
kidding.
Oh.
Like what? Like what? 480? 470?
Whatever the joule limit is, I
Jeez.
think it shoots
No,
just
we're
within
not
that. It's
basing
ridiculous.
that off of
Can I-
joules. We're basing
hold on,
that
can I
off
just-
FPS.
Can I just throw this up here?
Yeah.
I would like to see someone haul that around for a day.
Oh God, no,
Oh,
thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
That
no.
thing apparently the airsoft one is heavier than the real one. So no, thank you.
Yo,
Like,
you
way to
gotta
go.
flex. You gotta
The
flex.
one-time airsoft wins out.
Yeah.
They're all like, yeah,
But,
you real
so-
guys think you know?
So this
Yeah,
is
so-
Paul. What you're doing is basically having them ship it over, or are you picking it up down south?
I'm picking up down south. I use a place in Point to Roberts.
Yep. I
It's
use the
called
same
Point
place
to Point.
too. Yep.
I use Point to Point. There are other places you can use that are in Bellingham.
There's a few
or-
of them out there. Yeah.
There are places down there that can do that. Now, when you go down there, you need to make sure you have a copy of your receipt,
Mhm.
whether printed or on your phone. I generally find having it directly on my phone because look, if they want to go through my phone, they're gonna go through my phone.
They're gonna
I
go
prefer
through
to
your
have it
puns.
with right up to the website.
Yeah.
So I'm like, look, here it is on the website. You need to make sure that the.
Oh.
Sorry, I got a bunch of messages from Dave on. The No, I need you to import again for me. I'll look at that later.
While we're on the topic,
Yeah, I haven't. Now, do you know, I haven't imported anything on
Recently?
the entirety of the pandemic, and now that
Okay.
the rules have finally lifted, I can actually go pick up my package. It's been sitting there since March
I-
of 2020.
I think
I
we're
don't
gonna
even
have
know
a
what the package
separate.
is
We're
anymore.
gonna have a separate podcast for just importing alone, and I think we need to come
Um,
back to you, Paul, about it.
But the importing basically comes down to 366 and above is what needs to be
Yep.
capable of shooting. Make sure you have your receipts and whatever, and declare it. Don't try and hide it, whatever. Don't lie to the border guards. Tell them what you have.
Fair.
If you get pulled into secondary, you get pulled into secondary, and you will pay taxes on the item based on the value that you paid for it.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. Just declare it. Make sure you have all the proper paperwork. Make sure when you buy it that it will meet said magical requirements, and that's pretty much it. Now, mailing it to you, that's a whole different ball of wax, and you can be dealing with somebody who likes to be super anal retentive, and you could get screwed. I find
and
bringing
you're
across
usually not in front of
person-
them. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're bringing
Mhm.
across in person, I generally find it significantly easier to deal with somebody when you're talking to them directly. Because if you're dealing with it in their mail center, you're going to be dealing with them either by letter communication or basically telephone tag, and that
Mhm.
sucks.
So, okay. Well, thank you for the laws there, because I think we might come back to that on a later podcast when it comes to importing stuff. But that's good to know. That's a little bit of a tip right there from Paul. And now you're probably gonna get a lot of messages asking for people for for advice now.
Gundila, Gundila.
Yeah, probably.
What is he? Is he the mechanic of Tarkov now? Is that what he is? Yes, that's what he
Yes.
is. All right.
Import specialist.
Yeah. We've already talked enough about airport and border crossing here. Yeah, I think main points is basically get to the airport or the border crossing. Tell them if they let's start off with the airport. If once you're there, make sure you know, like what Dave was saying, like declare it right away to the ticket counter. Head straight directly to the ticket to TSA or CBSA, whichever one you're dealing with first. And then
no, you don't on the airport. You go to you go to the ticket counter first.
Yeah, no.
if they
That's
wanna
what I was
talk-
saying. Like you go to ticket counter first. Once
Oh,
you're done
okay.
that, then they're gonna ask you if you know, for your security. Usually it's like for me, when I was dealing with CBSA, it's the security clearance that I need from CBSA, which I went over to their counter. They cleared me, and then I went back to the ticket counter and be like, "Hey, I submitted." They're like, "Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, that's done then." And then I could put the rest of my luggages away. That's basically it.
When I went, it was funny because when I went through the airport, I was expecting to have to talk to the CBSA there physically. I didn't.
No,
I went
it's-
straight to the ticket counter.
You went
did all that
YVR,
stuff,
right?
Yeah, through YVR.
Yeah,
No,
Y-
because
my
if,
paperwork.
as long
YVR
as you've
has
already
a-
been cleared in, yeah.
Yeah, YVR has a TSA. What do you call
Yeah.
it? Clearance
Agreement.
center as well.
Yeah, the pre-
Agreement,
Yeah, so I went through the pre-screening area because I have a Nexus and everything. And
Oh, okay.
the dude looked at 2 pictures of one of my gun case, one of my bag. And he goes, what are you transporting with you? I'm like, I'm taking some airsoft guns and going down to an event in Georgia. He's like, oh, that sounds cool. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Didn't even open it up. Nothing.
Yeah, they're pretty nice about it, especially when you like you said,
They're
like,
very
when you do
straightforward,
when you do the paperwork properly, then they're gonna be nice about it, right? It's how it is. The
Mhm.
border crossing, if they ask, then
Yeah,
Hell
you
no.
gotta be a little bit more careful that way too.
yeah. Either way, you have the paperwork with you, so you have nothing to hide. That's pretty much it. Don't lie to them. After you've cleared that and you've flown around, yeah, enjoy the event. I mean, the reason you're going out there, right? We're giving you guys a heart attack on how to transport all this stuff here. At the end of the day, you're out there for a fun event / milsim. You made it to the U.S. Enjoy your event, take lots of photos, hydrate, of course, and enjoy the local eats, make some good friends or enemies, up to you if you want to be like that, I guess. And yeah, just make sure you treat it like you treat it here, right? I mean, don't go out in public with your airsoft guns. I mean, why would you? I mean, that's kind of dumb. I mean, yeah, don't be an idiot. Store your guns, when you're not in an event, store your guns in the hotel room, lock it up. Like, don't just leave it out there for the hotel service to like come in, walk into your room and be like, oh, what the hell's all this? Right?
Yeah, be really careful too. Like if you're going to another country with all your stuff, you should want to keep your documentation and your stuff close to you as much as possible. And it's not to say like, because some people drive down and that's fine. And I've heard stories of people having their stuff stolen. And the last thing you want to do is have your stuff get yoinked basically from some other reason. It's just better to keep track of all your shit basically.
Yeah. So yeah, do what I do when it comes to traveling. My recommendations is type out your entire itinerary, like day by day of what you're doing, so that if they ask you something, you'll be like, oh yeah, no, this is what I was doing. Or even then, do like an itemized list as well of what you brought, especially the goodies, like the expensive stuff. Like if you're bringing like like, oh yeah, I'm bringing like this laser unit or like this expensive like L-can or something, like freaking label everything that you have. Yeah, so once you're done, time to head home. You return, you basically do the same thing, just in reverse. And now that I still call it the WIBE form.
BSF 407.
BSF 407 form. Yeah, that becomes important to coming back to Canada, and that's the reason why you fill it out in the first place, so that you can come back safely without really raising any attention. I mean, we've all heard stories of you guys going in there and like, yeah, we don't need this, we don't care. I was like, it's still
it makes your life easier, but it makes the border guards' life easier too.
It's
because
it's
then they
written
realize
it's
that
written
you've
in
done your
our
homework.
federal law that we need it, so we're gonna fill it out regardless.
Gotta risk it for your biscuit.
Yeah.
I just follow the
even
rules.
Even if they tell you, even if they tell you like you don't need this, just do it anyways.
Yeah,
it just have it. Like it's better to, like Paul said at the beginning, it's better to have it and not need it than to have it and need it.
Yeah.
And not have it and need it.
Yeah.
There we go. Jeez,
So-
brain farts.
So that basically breaks down traveling to the USA for airsoft. It's honestly, once you figure it out and
It's easy.
do your
If
reading,
you follow
guys,
the rules,
Yeah.
that's what it is. Just follow the rules.
don't think that traveling to another country, gives you extra privileges. No, you have to follow their rules.
Yeah.
You have to follow, especially when it comes to like border crossings, like international travel. You don't fudge around with that. You really don't. Like, you need paperwork just to travel from one country to another. You never fudge around with that, guys.
Exactly. And then like just look from schoolboys like recent like travels there. So like Dave, like minding the New York, next time Newark.
Yeah.
Right? Like
learn to
minding
value
that little hiccup, right? Everything else that you did to prepare yourself to kind of like streamline the event, it pretty much went through like, tit for tat, right? Like it went, other than the hiccup, it was good. Like,
yeah, the hiccup was more of a technicality on their end. They realized they were wrong and we were still on the right. But the last place you really want to have to deal with it is in court.
And
It's
trying
not
to,
something that's worthwhile.
trying to fight an uphill battle.
Exactly. So it's just, I don't know, like the entire trip itself was smooth as butter. I was, like I said, I was expecting to have to deal with uh, more screening, more extra this and that,
Yeah.
and more explanation. But I barely went through any at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty straightforward. But I had everything in my back pocket basically just in case if something went wrong.
Yep.
So
it's-
it that way, like, you cover your butt.
Yeah.
And then the worst that happens is they take your stuff and you get in poo poo. Like you get a
As-
pee slap if anything.
As long as you can get home, those items are just
Yeah.
items. As long as you can get home and they don't imprison you for anything, that is the most important part. Is being able to get home, right? They're gonna take your stuff. They're gonna take your stuff away, but just be mindful that you'd rather be home safe than be stuck either in prison over there or
Yeah.
something else, right? So
Yeah, it's kind of it's important.
yeah, just follow the rules, guys. Read. Ask us any questions because I've traveled, David's traveled, Paul's traveled, McIntack, you've traveled. Yeah, it's honestly, we're not scaring you, but it's easy. Just make sure you follow the
It
rules.
can be daunting,
Yeah.
right? But if you do the following steps, right?
It's
So
easy
for
if you're
me,
honest.
I'm planning on driving down to Victorville here, hopefully in October. And exactly as long as I follow the rules, I declare what I
Plan.
Mhm.
yeah, is like exactly because after the border crossing, everything else is just like a normal trip, guys.
You're a
Mhm.
tourist in their
Hotels.
country. That's what it is.
The
Exactly.
driving is the next hardest part.
Yeah.
Cross the border is the difficult
Yeah.
part,
Yeah.
and it's flip a coin. Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be difficult today? It really depends who you get. You could get a guy who just got yelled at by like the Karen of all Karens, and he's not like, I'm pissed off. This next guy's coming through here.
And
If
we're going to
if he looks at me
secondary.
funny, he's going to secondary, and I'm going to put on the gloves.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to,
be nice to
bite
them,
on
guys.
this,
They're
please,
people too. They're people
yeah,
too.
like they're normal people. They're
Yeah.
just trying to do a job, and it's like that's what I mean.
Mhm.
Like for me, when I cross, I try and be nice and polite all the time.
Yeah. If you make their life if you make their life easier, they'll probably make yours easier.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And always answer honestly. Right? Don't
Yeah,
swindle your way. Don't lie your way
don't
through
fudge.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, when I do my border crossings, I walk across. I park at a park only a couple blocks from the border. I walk across, and the border guy's like, "Why didn't you drive?" And I'm like, "Look at me, I'm fat." And of course, the moment you get them to laugh, you're already off to a good start.
Yeah.
Because then, and I'm a little bit on the overweight side, so I'm like, you know what? Yeah, look, I'm like, I need the exercise. I'm like, I'm fat. I'm like, he's like, yeah, that's fair. I'm like, so then instantly you're already on a good standing because then look, they're like, okay, look, yeah, this guy's here. He's doesn't seem like a bad person. And it's like, if you can't crack a joke, don't crack a joke because then it's just only gonna
Mhm.
be bad. I'm like, in my case, I'm fat, so I can make a joke. I'm fat. And generally sometimes then they also
I was-
sympathetic with you. So
I was
you
expecting you to make puns at the border, and
Oh god, that does not go over well if you make puns.
Wait, so you actually don't make puns while you're out there? Oh my god!
Don't
I mean,
make
I do.
puns.
They just don't click on it, and I don't make faces afterwards. Everyone in the vehicle knows, and the best part is, then you have to hear them stifle the groans. So that way, it's like I get to do stealth puns that everyone knows is a
my
pun,
God.
except that
I'm
guy.
just incredibly happy that I don't have to travel with you, Paul. I would not be able to deal with 12 hours of puns.
I laugh because I have.
Hey, you could be on the opposite driving aspect. So that way you could be sleeping while I'm driving.
Well,
Oh gosh.
yeah, I think we're good here for this topic. It's
Yeah.
not really a long topic, honestly. The biggest one to do is planning, like selecting an event, planning for it. Make sure you have enough
Mhm.
funds. Like traveling is not cheap, guys, and also doing the paperwork because
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
all those three covered. Man, you're gonna have an easy time
Yeah, the
traveling.
planning, like I said, we said before the thing started, the planning is one of the biggest things you have, and always round up when it comes to anything expense wise. If you think you're going to use and pick a number to round up to. When I do it, when it comes to money, I always round up to the nearest $50 mark, never to below. So if I come to like a $1.50 mark, that's going up to $50. If I'm at 1 kilometer, I'm rounding that up to 25 kilometers.
Mhm.
So on for anything along those lines, always round up because it's better to overestimate your costs
Then
than to
underestimate.
underestimate,
Yeah.
because then you feel great when it's all said and done. You go, I expected to spend, let's just say $1,000, and you go, I ended up spending only $750. You feel great because then you go, I saved $250 on this trip
Mhm.
Yeah. And
because
you
you
could buy more souvenirs.
overestimated. And at the
Yeah.
same time, then you have a very good idea of, can I actually? And one other big thing, if you are driving in the States, make sure collectively, if you're with multiple people, you have below $2,500 cash below. Because in the States, civil forfeiture, if you have over $2,500 in the vehicle, that money can be seized and then your money is put on trial.
Mm.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that is something to be aware of. So make sure whoever's with you, whatever amount of money they're bringing, you need to know how much money they're going to bring in cash if they're bringing cash.
But Paul, we're
keep it
airsofters.
below.
We're poor.
Ooh.
Wearing our vests.
All right, I guess we'll end it
Got
off
us.
there, guys.
He
Thank you
got us,
very much.
guys.
Thank you, David, for coming along, for sharing your experience with New York. Make sure to go to New
Yeah.
York
All I got,
now.
I just got one piece of advice, Rowan.
Yep.
Get New yoinked.
Newark, not
Newark.
New York.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you, Paul. Yeah, I think from my group of friends that knows how to travel, I think you're the furthest one in the list that's like traveled from a long time ago and had to figure it all out. And yeah, I followed
and then
I
I've
followed your
basically
ruling
helped
since.
everyone ever since, because that's what it's been like. The moment I figured it out, everyone locally here has been like, how'd you do it?
Yeah.
What did you need to do? And I'm like, I will gladly regale you with how.
So
Because
Paul,
then
we're
it's
gonna
once
ask you a
it's like,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty much once you get past the first step of the knowledge of, because that's what I mean, that whole BSF 407 Y38 forms. Once you get past that, then that's basically the biggest hurdle to find out and
Mm.
learn.
Mhm.
Everything else after that comes down to is the very small minutia details. But the thing is, when you help out one person, then they come back and go tell you, so then you get more information. So
Yeah.
that's basically what it was. The moment I figured it out, I told people, then as they did it, I learned from what happened with them, so I could add more and more to my collective knowledge of
Yep.
what I learned.
More
So,
educated airsofters.
So Paul, are people free to reach out to you? Where would they do that? I'm guessing Discord, or is there like any
Discord
other
is
social
probably one
media?
of the more easier ways to do it. I do have a Facebook, but I don't get notified when random people message me on there. So
Yep. So yeah,
it's best to try and talk to me via the Discord. I go by Hans as my current handle right now. I'm one of the moderators. It's pretty much if you come in there and be like, hey, who's that importing guy? Nah, pretty much be able to respond.
Boom. Like
all
Roadrunner.
right, and perfect. Mac, Tack, anything from you guys? Closing statements before we close this off.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys taking time to, sort of share your experiences. I know this has been a subject that our community has tried to get us to do. And you know what, guys? It is
Asked over and
you-
over again.
You need people who have experience. Mac and I only have one experience. These guys have had their experiences. You guys can now go and have your experiences because the borders are open. So again, thank you too for sharing your experiences. Hopefully this answers some of the community members' questions that were being asked. If not, rewatch this because what the heck. And hope to see you guys at the next event down south of the border or across east. Who knows? With that said, does anyone else have anything to add? No? Okay. All right. Well, guys, this has been episode 84 of the Panther Airsoft Folding Table Talk, the topic of traveling to the USA for Airsoft with our guests, Schoolboy and Hans.
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 My name is Hans.
And your awesome hosts, Mac, Tack, and Poi. Well, we love you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.
All right,
Yeah.
see you guys.